Got it. Bob Bender.
Here.
Joy Campbell Privateer.
Here.
Margaret Della. Not yet. Rosemary Ginty.
Here.
Rob Jaklowski. Ed Green.
Yeah.
Bob Fanuzzi. Not yet. David Gelman.
Present.
Ram Dot. Not yet. Ted Morris. Nope. Chuck Merdler. Nope. Omar Murray. Nope. Dan Paternak.
Here.
Laura Spalter.
Present.
Nick Fazio. Nope. Marty Walpoff.
Here.
Julia Gomez. Definitely here. Was here a second ago. Oh, she's gone now. Oh,
I'm here.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay.
couldn't get off mute.
Okay. Deb Travis.
Here.
And Sergio Villaverde. Not yet. Okay.
Okay, so having a quorum, do we have any comments on the executive committee minutes of April 6th? I hope everybody had a chance to look at them. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Okay, having done that now, is there anyone opposed to approving the minutes? Is there anyone abstaining on the minutes? Okay, the minutes are unanimously approved. Okay. I have a brief chair's report. First, the sexual harassment training. It's due by June 30th. Has anybody done it yet? Have they, has it gone smoothly?
Laura, I've done it, but I haven't received any type of receipt that they got it. So that's where I am with that. I don't know how you check on that. I took a snapshot, picture of the certificate on screen, but I didn't send it to anybody. Are we supposed to get some type of receipt that we took this from them?
Ed, I'm sorry, Ed, just send me the certificate, a picture of that. That will be suffice.
Okay, got it.
Thanks.
Everybody else, it's going smoothly?
Rosemary has your hand up.
Yeah, no, it's Kira, you and I have been back and forth. It's not working for me at all. I won't bore people with what shows up on the screen, but it's impossible. I tried again today and it's not working. I have contacted them. I think you had where we could contact them. They have not gotten back to me. So okay. I'm not going to chase anymore. I mean, either they respond to me, or I think there's an alternative that you could set something up in the board office so I could sit at one of those computers or something, but it's not working for me at all. Multiple tries.
I didn't know they didn't get back to you yet. So I will follow up with them. I am sure they're being inundated because this was a horrible rollout on their end. And like I told you, Rosemary, they didn't even send me what they sent to board members. I think you sent it to me. So I had no idea, when people were calling me for help, what you guys even got. So I'll circle back with them and then I'll get back to you. But we have received certificates from a few board members. So if you are having issues, certainly let the office know. But remember, we can't really help too much. It's just this contact that they put on the training information, which obviously they're not getting back to Rosemary. So I'll do a little digging tomorrow and circle back.
Kira, how is the process different this year from last?
I don't know.
I don't think it is.
I
haven't done it yet.
They give everybody a login, I believe. Like you got a login or some sort of password when you got the email. Again, I didn't get that email until Rosemary sent it to me. I don't think it's much different, but there could be tech issues with it. Like the link might not be working or it might show up different, but the training itself and the process might not be different.
I haven't done it yet myself. I'm wondering if the substance is different from you know, the last time we went around. But in any event, if you're having problems, do contact Kira. She'll do her best. Rosemary, I'm sorry about this. I guess we'll get to the bottom of it.
Well, actually, I mean, to add a little humor to it, as I hit the buttons as directed, it comes up, thank you very much for having completed the course.
Oh.
Thank you very much. And it hit exit, I hit exit, and it says, you scored 100%. This is how long it took you to do it. And so I passed. This is without doing anything.
Done.
Without doing anything. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Hey,
All right, but you're done. You're done. Take a picture of it. It should happen to me.
Maybe it was so boring you slept through it.
Hey, Laura, I just wanted to comment that what Rosemary is saying, the exact same thing happened to me. I was tempted to I actually did take this.
Poor boy.
And then, like the sucker that I am, I did the honorable thing and retook the thing. I probably could have just sent the thing in and said that was, you know, just food for thought, not throwing anything out there. I was tempted, but it was the exact same training as last year. As far as I remember.
When I went back today to do it, it said, you want to pick up where you left off. I figured, well, so I hit that and it said, thank you for completing the course. There's no way to get into the.
I never look a gift horse in the mouth.
I did, unfortunately.
It's a blessing.
That speaks well to your character, Ed.
Yes,
Mary.
yes.
Not to the hour of my life that I lost doing it.
All right, item number 2, I'm happy to announce that the Borough President's Office has selected 3 long-time members of Community Board A to honor with a special dinner, and also they get a +1. And those members are Chuck Murther, Karen Pesch, and Marty Walpoff, and they're being celebrated for their many years of service. And that will take place on May 11th. So that's very nice. Congratulations.
Very good.
On the awards, nominations for the Irving Latimer Community Service Award and Most Valuable Merchant Award are being accepted through May 15th. And nominations are definitely coming in for both. I want to thank the Economic Development Committee for their work on this, and our ad hoc committee members of the Community Service Award Committee. This year, they are Rob Jaglowski, Stephen Vasquez, and Chris Calhoun. So we'll, keep you posted on that. A little update on the Riverdale Avenue redesign. I wrote the Assistant Director for Operations for Metro North Railroad. I sent her DOT's plans and concerns regarding the bus turnaround at the city line and the other bottlenecks that could impede the Riverdale Hudson rail link route and their time schedule. And I was told that Metro North had absolutely no knowledge of this plan, and she expressed concerns about it. She has sent it up to upper management, and she will get back to me. So we'll see, because that's Metro North and the rail link. If you take it like I've taken it, you just about make your train, and any delays will definitely knock off their whole schedule. So I'll keep you posted on that. We've been very busy with the open meetings law, but more about that later when we do the resolution. Okay, I'll hold that for that. So let's move on to the treasurer's report. Joy.
Good evening, everyone. This is the treasurer's report for fiscal year 22, May. Kira, are we going to start with the resolution, or
no? I'm trying to find the. Yeah, here we go.
Okay. All right. Item 1, the operating budget. As always, the budget for personal services doesn't change. The allocated amount 167,836. Remaining 65,698, and other than personal services, other than salaries, we have 90,194 left. 1.1 other than personal services, allocated 17,306, and we have remaining 20,707. No budget mods this month for this report. 1.3 purchase order accounts payable. Encumbered 7975. And I'll just direct your attention to the print under that section that there is a lag in processing, between inputting and processing with respect to this section. 1.4 allocated 49,558 and remaining 17,614. Okay, and this is the proposed, actually the projected budget. I think nothing in particular for this item except, can you roll down, Kira? The office furniture that's been purchased, a lot of office furniture, office equipment, I'm told printing, the cleaning services with respect to item 624, code 624 at 5,000. So total $35,020. And Kira, can you just roll up with to the heading? Okay. And this is just based upon trying to be in compliance with the last couple of years. And, with the caveat that the COVID situation occasioned probably more in cleaning than prior years. And now with respect to the budget, the resolution, you can pull that up. All right.
Joy, do you mind if I just add one thing before we move on to the resolution?
Of course.
Joy and I sat down and we looked at what we've spent the past few years and what projected operating budgets were passed in the past 2 years. This is the same exact projected budget as last year. It worked out for most of this year. As you know, we've done 2 budget modifications, which is very typical for us.
Mm-hmm.
But this will be a very good start for us in September, and should we need, we can do a budget mod at any time. And you'll just see in 499, we're keeping that holding code. We're putting $20,000 once again, which is sort of a savings for us for when we need it. And this savings and cushion did well for us the past 2 years, so we felt comfortable in keeping it the same.
Mm-hmm.
I do see 2 hands up, so whenever you're ready, Joy, I'll call
wait
on.
a second.
And
Let me that participants list. Okay, Dan and then David.
Okay.
Yeah, I just a couple of questions. I guess let's start with the first basic one. I see that we have allocated for FY22 41,802 as our OTPS, but then it's showing 38,013. I was just wondering what that difference was.
Last year we had money from Councilman Rodriguez. We have not gotten any word about any special council funding that we have this year for next year.
But I'm not talking about next year. I'm talking about this year. I'm talking about 22. So when you go to number 1 and number 1.1.
Let me go back to the treasurer's report. Okay, I'm sorry, Jim. What am I looking? What are you referring to?
Section 1 shows a budget of OTPS of 41,802, and 1.1 is showing the same OTPS budget as a 38,013. I was wondering what the difference is, why those 2 numbers are different.
I don't have an answer right now. I can look into that.
They should be the same, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's just some sort of miscalculation here. But let me look at the spreadsheet and I can get back to you.
The second question I have is, a few months ago, we asked if we could we could place on one of these reports, without putting names, where we are with staff, I guess accrued time, which would affect our budget, at a future date, or could affect our budget at a future date.
Kira, let me answer that. In discussing with the officers at this juncture, we feel that Kira will report on that on a regular basis, and it's not necessary to include here. That's more.
So Laura,
yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's an officer decision to make. And, we did request this in the executive committee, a number of months ago, and there was no objection at that point to it.
Well,
just proper planning and information that the board should have.
The absences and sick days and the like, Kira supervises that with the staff, and then I do the timesheets for Kira. We can further discuss this, but this has never, since 1974, been the domain of the executive committee. Somebody did request it, and I do recall that, Dan, but I don't recall that we passed that that's what we're going to do. It was during an explanation.
So if you're saying that we should bring this through a resolution to present this information to the board.
Well, if somebody wants to do that, they could do that, but we certainly didn't decide that night, yes, we're going to do this.
Well, that's the answer that we got that night, and we can go back to or at least that's my recollection, was that it would be provided. Now I can go back.
It was not my recollection.
Try to find it. Well, and again, I could be wrong, and I don't mind going back to the video of that evening.
I recall a discussion. I don't recall that we said that this was what we're going to do.
But I don't know why you would want to withhold that information.
I'm not withholding anything. I just explained that I don't think that it's the kind of record keeping and personnel information that's not necessarily in the executive committee or in any committee. And it's never been done before. It's never been asked before. We could certainly discuss it. We remember Laura, different things.
It was done before. As a point of fact, I did it when I was board chair. I put that information out, and it was reported to the executive committee without names going out. So that way,
what I recall, Dan, is, and I don't want to belabor this, because we remember different things, but Kira will report on that on a periodic basis. We could certainly do that. But in terms of having additional columns, I don't recall anything like that.
So Laura, I wasn't asking for an additional column. I was asking for the report of it, which we still haven't received. And as I recall at that last executive meeting, that's what was stated, that there would be a report at an executive meeting.
All right, we could do a report.
But that's what you said months ago, and it still hasn't occurred.
Beat me up.
It's not about beating you up, Laura. It's about being transparent. And I'm asking, so right now we're in the month of May. I don't recall which month it was that I asked. Perhaps it was February. So in the month of June, will we have that report at the June executive
meeting? We can have that report.
Okay, so we're all in it's not going to be a column. It's going to be a report in the month of June.
I did think you said at the beginning it was a column. Maybe I misunderstood. A report is a report.
Perhaps
you said a column.
But
yeah, well, there's a big difference.
Which is fine, but we will have a report.
There's a difference between a report. Absolutely, there'll be a report. Then having it on the, on the paperwork and doing an extra column and that kind of thing. So we agree.
That's
we'll have
fine.
a report in
You're
June.
going to report in June. Thank you.
I see David.
Yes.
And then Bob.
Yes, I think Dan's point is well taken, particularly because we experienced carryover issues in the past, but that's not the purpose of my hand. I wanted to get into get into this 1.1 chart, particularly about supplies and equipment. We only have about 7 weeks left, and we have a substantial amount of supplies and equipment budget that will sunset in about 7 weeks. And so I know I alluded to this last month, but I wanted to know exactly, as we come down to the remaining few weeks in budget time, what we are planning on doing with that. And it'll relate to a question I'll ask during Kira's report regarding the electronic lock system for the new office that I think we should purchase now with this spare budget.
David, Joy, I can answer David's question.
Okay, please.
Due to OMB working on the mayor's executive budget, there was a hold on all reporting by them. So we have been spending money every single day, and this number has decreased quite a bit. But unfortunately, it doesn't show in this report because of OMB's, you know, all hands on deck go to the executive budget. So it doesn't reflect here. So it will reflect next month.
Okay. That gives me concern. So those bottom line figures are 38,000 and 17,000 with a remainder of 20,000. What are they really, roughly? I'm not looking for precision.
I can't tell you a number right now. We spent all day doing ordering and billing, and I couldn't tell you what's remaining out of this report. So I can definitely follow up with you once I get a better report from OMB, but I don't feel comfortable just giving a ballpark number right now.
Okay.
Bob Bender.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Yeah, my question relates to the purchase of the equipment we're going to need for the current office to do the hybrid meetings, you know, the technological equipment that we're going to need. Is that reflected in this budget now? And if it is, where can you tell me where it is in the budget?
Sure. So I was going to report a little bit on the tech upgrades that we're doing in our office right now. And that is not reflected in this report because it has not been received or installed. So once it is, it will be, which will be later this week. So that will be reflected in the next treasurer's report. But to just answer your question, and I know this has come up for a few months, and I've spent a lot of time on researching best ways to make our meetings work hybrid, to include the public, to be transparent. And I think I have mentioned before that I've met with professionals in all sorts of fields of what they're doing, you know, how it works for them, what they would recommend, what they wouldn't recommend. And I spoke with DeWitt and one of the commissioners over at DeWitt, and she informed me what other community boards were doing, specifically in Brooklyn and Queens. And they were installing, you know, like new cameras in their conference room, new TVs, new computer setups, all completely wireless that would be able to, you know, record our meetings and be able to have them go live during this new hybrid model. So the company that DeWitt recommended actually did work for us in the past. They installed our security camera and they rewired our main office for us a few years ago. So we have them coming in hopefully Friday, to hope it, you know, if our schedules all work out, to install that. So again, I can't pay for that equipment or installation until it takes place. And once that is done, it'll be reflected in the report. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Kira.
But...
Yeah. No, I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Sure.
Not seeing any hands. Let's move on to the next piece.
Okay, this is the resolution. And again, I just want to point out, this is the resolution for the projected operating budget for next year. This is something that Roz, former Chair Rosemary Ginty, and I put together, I guess 3 years ago now, just so we could send to OMB and they can set up our budget moving for July 1st, kind of just giving us something to work with. And again, a budget modification can happen at any time of the year should we need to shift funds around.
Okay. So let me just take the hands piece down. Can everybody see it? Because whereas the treasurer and district manager Kira, could you read it? Because I have something blocking.
And this is the same resolution we passed last year and the year before. Whereas the treasurer and district manager of Bronx Community Board 8 prepared a projected operating budget, which is below for the board's expenses for 2023. Be it resolved, the Community Board 8 approves the projected operating budget for fiscal year 23.
Okay, any questions? Then we'll move on to the district manager's report.
I'm sorry, real quick. How much do they differ, those numbers?
The exact same as last year.
Very good, thank you.
Kira,
okay,
you're on.
So I went into some of the upgrades we're doing in the office. We've also purchased some wiring and different things that we will need for our new microphones and cameras. So, you know, we're really working hard on this. It's taken a lot of time. You know, everyone has a different opinion on hybrid meetings and how to do them. So it's something I'm really just trying to juggle and figure out what's best for us. And so I'll move on to my next piece. Laura and I met with the new borough staff of the Department of Homeless Services yesterday. They focus primarily on constituent cases. As you know, we don't get too many homeless constituent issues in our district, but we did receive a complaint about a new homeless encampment that has taken place by BJ's. So we provided the staff with that information, and you know, they were going to look into it and send it to their street team. As you may know, the administration and the Department of Homeless Services has really taken a focus on street homelessness. So their street team was supposed to go out yesterday and look into this and provide support to the people living in this homeless encampment. They didn't have any updates or anything about the homeless shelter proposed for Broadway. They just really focus on constituent cases, and they would be our contact. I don't know if any of you remember Nicole, who worked for the Department of Homeless Services. She kind of was our middleman between the Broadway Family Shelter. So these two women replaced Nicole.
It was a lovely meet and greet.
It was really, really nice. And lastly, I just want to remind committee chairs, I think I probably do this once a year, but the staff has really found themselves chasing down minutes and agendas for committees. Please remember to submit your agenda in ample time and your minutes shortly within 10 days of the meeting. It's important to be mindful that the community needs appropriate notice of the meetings and of the minutes. They're always asking us, and if we don't have it, we kind of just, you know, have our hands up in the air. In addition, the office is really busy. We've taken on a lot of new tasks. There's a lot of constituent issues. We're dealing with a lot of new policy changes. So chasing down committee chairs is taking a lot of our time up. So I'll resend the letterhead tomorrow, and I just ask that all of you submit your agendas on letterhead, send it back to us. We'll insert the Zoom link. And again, I understand you know, you all have lives, you work, you forget. That's okay. But there are some committees where it's every single month. We're chasing them down. We're sending them out 4 or 5 days in advance. And it's just not fair to us, and it's not fair to our residents. That's my report. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes.
I think that's Sylvia.
I see Ed.
I didn't put my hand up. I just spoke without thinking. I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead, Sylvia.
Kira, when you talked about the hybrid situation, and you say the conference room with microphones and cameras and such, does that mean that the hybrid will come out of the office at all times?
Yeah, ideally committees who can fit in the conference room will have to meet in the conference room. It's going to be really hard to find venues with the technology that we need to support us. So obviously larger committees or meetings we know that will be, you know, will have high attendance, or the full board meeting, we'll have to figure out elsewhere, and we're working on that. But we can encompass most of our committees in our conference room.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And most importantly, we will once I figure it out and Tanya and Pablo figure it out, we will train committee chairs. You know,
Okay.
like we did with Zoom in general, we'll have practice runs and, you know, so on and so forth. We'll be there to help you guys as much as we can, and
Okay.
especially in the beginning. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see Ed and David.
David.
Thank you. You mentioned the homeless encampment by BJ's in your report. I'm totally unaware of this, and I'm hearing this now for the first time. So this is something that I think is going to affect my committee to some degree. So if you could just please keep me in the loop about any updates with that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Ed, I should have done that from the beginning, but the complaint came in during our meeting. So I just sent it directly to them, but I will certainly send that to you now.
Thank you.
David.
Yes. By the way, Ed, it's behind BJ's on the street next to Mavis. I just happened to come across it, I think when we were taking our tour of the Greenway. Anyway, so my questions are one, last month after exec, I sent in a reminder that we needed to update the budget page of our website to include fiscal year 22 and 23. That hasn't been done. And I only bring it up because somebody brought it to my attention at one of the committee meetings that she couldn't find it. I think it was housing. She couldn't find it, and it still has not been updated. So, and I was told it would be taken care of. So
yeah, I put that request in myself, David. And I wish I knew
is this one of these do it things that you got to wait for them to react?
Yeah. So let me.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I thought it was that you guys had some control over it.
Soon.
No, and I will quickly just go into this website. It's become the bane of my existence. So I thank you all for your patience and ask for more. We have our old website, which we're operating right now. And, you know, obviously we have to keep that up to date with calendars, agendas, minutes, but there's some minuscule information on there where I was just said to myself, okay, we're not going to update that right now because we're working really hard on our new website. And we've hit a few hiccups because it's new for Do It as well for us. So they've had to train us and figure things out on their end as well. But we should be launching our new website really soon. The budget stuff is on there because any addition or deletion or anything on the new website, we will be responsible for. But when we're working with our current old site, it's Do It.
Okay.
And Do It has lost a lot of staff. So it's just kind of been, like I said, the bane of my existence, but I put that request in myself and I put it for urgent. So I'll double check on that tomorrow, but it's also on our new site. For whatever that is worth.
Okay, I didn't realize that you were waiting for Do It to step up.
Yeah,
my other question.
They're quick. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My email was on April 8th for your reference. The other thing is about the electronic lock for the new office, and trying to find out where we are in terms of the overall planning process for the new office. I think it's important that we do this now, and particularly budgeted now. I imagine it's $2,000 or $4,000. I don't know, over a plain old metal key, but I think it'd be money well spent. I think the location will have a lot of people hanging out there, and it could be troublesome if we don't have a way of controlling that door. And since you mentioned that you have a company that does the security cameras and you have them coming in, they probably would be a very good source for getting that kind of information. So do you know anything more at this point about an electronic key lock system?
Yes, sort of. So number one, obviously security and access to that office with all new equipment, new furniture is at utmost important to us, to the city. Not everyone will be getting a key or access to that office at all. DCAS shared with me what was being proposed. They said it's most likely our decision. They are not sure of that yet. And they are going to be getting back to me on what's considered standard and what options we may or may not have. It will probably be a modern system just because I think that's what their standard is with new offices. and I've shared our concerns with them. And like I said last time, I've asked them about this before. And, you know, they kind of tend to shake their head like, really, you're focusing on something so prematurely when we're still trying to secure the space. So I completely hear you, David. I know preparation is key, and while we have money, but it's also something that if we don't have to pay for, I'm not gonna poke that bear. So I will get back to you on what their standard installation is and what options we have.
Is that to say that DCAS will take care of it?
They could.
Their budgeting?
They could, or the landlord. You know, everything's still being negotiated. So I don't want to offer or buy anything if we don't have to.
I absolutely agree. I didn't realize that was an option. I just figured they were just going to put in a regular old medical lock and give you 4 keys. So you mentioned keys for it. Are they talking about a key fob or individual codes?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Fair enough. I didn't think you would know, and that's fine. I would strongly encourage key codes that are individually assigned, so you know who came in. Plus, you know, I don't plan on carrying a key fob with me all the time, but if I come home and get off the subway at 9:30 at night and I've got to pick up something, I could enter my code, but if I need a key fob, I probably won't have it, and that kind of thing. Just food for thought.
I want to thank you. I see 2 more hands. I see Dan and Sylvia. Dan.
Just briefly, a couple of questions, Kira. In the office, and I'm not sure where we are these days, are we doing any more hybrid work from home, or are all staff back in the office now? I really don't know where
we're still doing, not all 3 of us are back there together full time all the time. That makes sense. We switch on and off.
Meaning between the 3 members? Or meaning like 2 are there or 1 person is there?
Yeah, usually there's 2 of us there most of the time.
Gotcha. And then the 3rd member works from home on a particular day?
Right.
Is that how it works? Okay. Yeah. And I guess my second question is, you know, Rosemary mentioned it before. Do we still have a computer available for board member use if somebody wants to go?
Oh, absolutely. And we have, we call it Marvin's desk.
Yep.
So we have Marvin's desk, and we have laptops, which I know some community board members have had issues with their computers, and they needed an office laptop. Absolutely, we have.
Answers the question. Thanks so much.
Sylvia, was your hand down?
No, I put my hand down because Dan asked the question.
Okay. Seeing nothing else for district manager's report, we'll move on to the committee resolutions. I think we have one up here now for public safety.
Yeah, we have public safety. Yeah.
Okay, Public Safety Committee had 1 resolution for a full liquor license. So I guess I'll just read it. Whereas Joan Henchy, representative of Gaelic Athletic Association of Greater New York, located at 201 West 240th Street, appeared before the Public Safety Committee on April 19, 2022 to renew the establishment's liquor license. Whereas the address on the application was incorrect, and the representative stated she would submit the proper address with SLA the following day. Representatives of NYPD stated they were unaware of any disturbances or complaints, and the Public Safety Committee unanimously approved the application. So that's the Gaelic Park. They've been traditionally terrific in our area, and we had no issues with this application. That's it.
Any questions for Ed? Any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Do we have any other? We have some SAPOs.
Sorry, my thing.
No, of course, technology.
This is housing.
Okay.
See
it? Is Julie here? She had said she was going to try to come.
Okay. Julie was here before.
She's here. She was here.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so This resolution was presented to us by Tony Edwards, the president of Marble Hill Residents Council. And basically they've applied for a full street closure on 228th Street and Marble Hill Avenue to 230th Street for a 60-year community service award, which will be held between 12 noon to 9 p.m. And that includes the setting up and the breaking down of the items. And the events will be held on Saturday, June 18th. And it is one of the merchants in the area who has been servicing the community for over 60 years. It's a block party to give back to him and the community to show appreciation for everything that's been done.
Okay, are there any questions? And there wasn't a quorum at the Housing Committee. So this, of course, will be voted on by the full board. And, you know, that's indicated here.
Right.
Right.
Right. There was no quorum, but the majority of the Housing Committee members fully recommends. That would be the person who won me. But it is someone, and I also sent to the board a copy of an article that was in the Riverdale Press a few years back to send to the members so they can get an idea of essence of what this person and the business contributed to the community and why everyone in the community appears to be all for it. I hope everyone received it and read it. And if anyone has any questions, feel free.
David, your hand is up.
Yes, Julie, at the meeting,
yes,
it seemed to be unclear about how this event was going to be promoted. What was said was word of mouth to basically to Rosie's patrons.
Right.
And I remember that article that from the original publication. Sounds like a wonderful guy, but this is being sort of presented as a community event, but it's real. As I recall, it's being publicized by, quote, word of mouth to his patrons. And has there been any further clarification on that?
I can answer that question, Julie.
Sure.
Unless you do. But I spoke to the applicant today. And he did inform me that it did start out with like a smaller audience. And I guess it came up at the meeting. So now they've included NYCHA. NYCHA is going to be one of the partnering sponsors of the event, so that they're going to be doing outreach there. And some of the other merchants along in Marble Hill have also agreed to help with outreach. So they have definitely they have the intention to grow the event and for more than just patrons of that one place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, that makes much more sense. Thank you.
And I'm waiting for a flyer from them as well, which we're happy to share. So I think, David, they took your advice or whoever's advice at the meeting, and they're working on it.
Cool.
I don't see any other hands. I don't see any other hands. Julie, thank you so much for stepping up.
You're welcome, Laura.
Presenting and taking care of this at the meeting. And by the way, we're going to table. I've spoken with Tony. The board will be represented. We're going to table at that event.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, now Sylvia, education.
I just like to thank the board office for their help. I just have to plug them because they've been terrific. Thank you.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I have two TAPO applications, one being Lag BaOmer, a block party. Rabbi Shem Tov was at our meeting. It's for May 19th from 2:30 to 8 on West 235th Street between Independence and Douglas. They've had it for many years. It's always been a success. And at that point, I had 6 members of the committee because Marty Wolpoff came late. And the second one is the amalgamated nursery school. They were going to have a spring bazaar, but they changed it to a block party, and the date also, it's now going to be June 5th. The spring bazaar was going to be very expensive. The block party cost them nothing. So that's the way they went. Lindsay Armstrong was there representing the nursery school. And it will be from 11 to 3 on June 5th. And my thing isn't working. Between Gale Place and Olaf Avenue and Van Cortlandt Park. And there were 5 members. It was unanimous, but there were 5 members.
Okay.
Oh, I put him in twice. Marty Walpoff can't be in the one for the nursery school. I didn't do that. I don't think.
Okay. I mean, I copied and pasted what was sent, but I'll fix this.
Yeah. You probably thought he was there for the whole thing, but he wasn't. So.
No, this is what was sent to me. So.
Oh, okay.
But I can fix
but
it.
then I made the mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's fine.
But just to be accurate, he was not there for the nursery school.
Okay, I'll correct it.
Are you?
Before everyone punishes me, I got off my plane, got into a taxi cab,
Nobody's attacking you.
turned on my phone, and was at the meeting via my phone. So I want extra points for being there at all.
You have them. You have them. Thank you.
Marty, that's why you're being honored.
That does it for me.
Okay, Bob, is your hand up?
It is, yeah. Just a couple of comments. These are rather bare bones resolutions. I think it would help to say, for example, with the first one that Rabbi Shem Tov represents Chabad Lubavitch, just to indicate the, his affiliation. And I think, Sylvia, you said it when you presented the resolution, this event has taken place before. It has taken place for a number of years. I don't know how many, but several years.
Time.
Many.
Yeah. And I think that ought to be noted in the resolution as well.
It was not in the application.
Well, I don't know whether it was in the application or not.
No, it wasn't.
I haven't seen it.
That's why I didn't put it in.
Right, but I think in the interest of
I take your suggestion.
Sylvia, could I finish, please?
Sure.
I think in the interest of informing the board members about the resolution and about the event, it would be useful to say what the rabbi's affiliation is and the fact that the event has been held several times in the past. Because I know as a board member, whenever I'm presented with a resolution and asked to approve something, it's, if it's brand new, I have questions about it. But if it's something that's been going on routinely for years, then I feel much more comfortable accepting it as is. So, I'm simply recommending that you provide a little more information for the board members who may not be familiar with the event. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands, are there any other resolutions, Kira, aside from the one that I'm going to be speaking about?
Yes, I want to make a presentation.
Oh, okay. We're still on, so I'll discuss the open meetings law during, afterwards. Is that a resolution that you have, Marty?
I promised to make a report to the executive committee following the last community board meeting.
You're on.
Kira, could you make me co-host? I hate this. No, it's the other one. The other one. I should have sent it to you, Kira. Okay, the question was raised and a big brouhaha over whether or not wordsmithing is allowed. What is wordsmithing? How many people have to be on the head of the match before you can wordsmith? And so it was felt that the question, as I laid it out to the Committee on Open Government, wasn't specific enough. And therefore, I was asked to contact them again, which I did. And the issue became, and I underlined here the second letter I sent, the question raises whether it's a critical mass. When does a chairperson, in speaking to members of the committee, not at the public meeting itself, but the committee, when does that break the rules and become a quorum, or break the rules and that is not contacting one or two people? And so the question I asked is, and it's right here, is there a critical mass at which a public meeting was essential? That is, if a chair individually calls some, most, or every committee member for input or asks committee members to approve the whereas enhanced resolution, has there been a violation of OML? I hope that's exactly what the people who are concerned about what I was reporting, that I've accurately raised the question. The answer I got was rather succinct, and frankly, I was happy with it. I received this from the assistant director, and she noted to me that though members of a public body are able to informally agree upon changes outside of an open meeting, if the public body in question did not vote upon the changed resolution in an open meeting, the public body did not adopt the resolution in compliance with the open meetings law. So the question here for me was the actual voting on the resolution. And she suggested here are 6 advisory opinions that would help clarify the issue for me. And I looked at all of them, but I found this to be the most interesting. In that kind of circumstance, irrespective of the nature or content of the communication, even though each person on the list has received the same message, and even though the message might engender a response, we do not believe that the transmission or receipt of messages or information by means of email would constitute a meeting, or that the open meetings law would be implicated, unless, of course, the response involves a vote. And the vote, of course, here is the vote of the community board, which is a public meeting. And so as I interpret this, that if someone is authorized to wordsmith, add whereases, change words, whatever, and that person has the authority to do it by themselves, they certainly have the authority to contact a board member or 2 or 3 or everyone. The issue that they seem to raise is if I send out the revised edition for members of the committee to look at and respond to, there is no presumption that everyone got it at exactly the same time. Someone can open it a day or 2 later. Rosemary wants to be admitted. I just admitted her, okay. And so to me, the answer to the question still is that if I, as chair, authorized by my committee, take this up, look at it, make it pretty, and was suggested tonight and just did, Bob asked that Sylvia add a whereas or 2 because it'll make the resolution clearer. And if she was to take her suggestion and send it to every member of the education committee for input who got back to her, that would be totally legitimate. And so she could present that as the committee's resolution at the board. Obviously, if I, as a member of the committee, don't like that resolution and feels that it violated it, then I could challenge it, as could anybody else. But she has that authority. And that's what I ruled as parliamentarian. And I believe this supports that exactly in that matter. And then hold on, Dan. And then I sent to all of you, I sent my interpretation and the information I just suggested for you to review and look at. So and I see Dan has a question, so I'll ask Dan. Go ahead.
So, and Marty, I don't know if you had sent out the first email before this meeting. I'm sorry if you did. I didn't get a chance to take a look at it. The latest one from the Committee on Open Government. But I think, you know,
this email I sent out on April 15th, everyone.
Gotcha. So the one at the top, which you had read, which was highlighted, and the next one, which you put down, well, that's actually the AO 4354, I think is interesting, because AO 4354, which you have there, you know, it's going into a different set of facts. And I think we just kind of
4354, I have no idea what you're talking about. 4534.
It's one of the AOs.
4534.
I'm sorry, if you scroll down, 4354. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, my mistake. Sorry.
I'm sorry. It's written
4534.
Do you see where? Number. Gotcha. So it was written 4354 here.
The correct number is 4534.
Okay. So I guess on here, this is really sending emails out to folks, and I don't think anybody has a problem with sending emails out to board members, which is what that AO is going into from the brief read that I have from the very quick scroll. And I don't think anybody has an issue with resolutions going out to people and saying, here's a resolution that's coming out. No one's suggesting that that's a meeting. I think the issue, or the issue that we've raised, is when a quorum of a committee is responding back and they're reaching a decision through email, through a series of emails, and changing a resolution through that series of emails after, or I guess outside of the public meeting. That's the issue. And it's written a little bit in the first email that you wrote, or I'm sorry, that COOG has up there, and they touch on it. If you scroll back up to the top, stop. What was that one? I'm sorry. It was the first email that you had marked out for us.
The first one is, no, this is the one this is my second email to them.
Gotcha. This is the one from them. Yep. There we go. So they're kind of saying it. If the public body in question did not vote upon the changed resolution in open meeting, the public body did not adopt the resolution in compliance with OML. And I guess that's the point. Through these series of emails that are going back and forth from a quorum of members outside of the public, when it's being changed, you know, is that an issue? Is that a violation? Now understand what I keep going back to and keep saying, and you know, it's been done many times without an issue, is a committee passes a resolution, a chair puts out a revision and says, hey, everybody, you know, here's a proposed amended resolution. If anybody has comments, please let me know, right? If you have any comments, send them to me. And the chair himself is looking at comments, and the chair themselves, you know, is taking it in and pondering whether or not they're going to make any changes to their own amended resolution. The issue is when you're contacting folks back and making decisions outside of the public meeting. That's the issue.
I don't understand how it's different from the first thing you've already said.
It's different because through a series of emails, the committee is actually having a meeting.
I'm not seeing a series. What I'm seeing is the bottom line here. In both of these situations, although the same message may be distributed to all the recipients, the messages are received at different times, and there is no instantaneous interactive communication among the recipients, and no meeting, in my opinion, would be conducted. And I believe it was Freeman who wrote that.
So Marty, when you start at the very top of this AO, it says when a list of recipients, a listserv is developed, they receive an email from a sender.
Yeah.
Right. They're saying they receive an email. We send out a resolution to our whole board. And what it says next is, you know, they receive it at different times. Is that communication, right? Is that that's the very next thing. Is that communication violating? Of course not.
So what's the problem?
The problem is the series of emails coming back and making a decision.
At this moment, I don't know what series you're talking about. What I understand took place, and we're talking about here, is that the chair or some other person being assigned says, this is what you agreed to, I'm now going to embellish it. And I'd like your opinion. And people write into him at different times, and that person who is the designee creates the resolution. He's already for curing it, cures the resolution, makes it better than it was in the beginning, and now presents that on behalf of the committee. A meeting has not taken place. A vote has not taken place. An action by the committee has not taken place. The action is when that resolution hits the board, the full board, community board, that's when they vote on it. And that's when it becomes a public document.
So Marty, perhaps it might be better to do it a different way. Let's say a committee puts forward a resolution and they vote on it in public like we always do. That committee then goes to, they send the report to the executive committee. The executive committee says, hey guys, or hey chair, maybe this can be polished up a little bit before the board meeting. Perhaps you can consider amending this resolution. And the chair of that committee then goes back, emails all the members of the committee and says, hey, I'd like to polish up this resolution. I have some ideas. What do you think? And the committee members come back and you start getting a series of, okay, I agree with this. No, I don't agree with this. You then have decisions being made outside of the public meeting. And that's the issue that I have.
Well,
and
at
again,
this point,
I think we're overdoing, and again, I think we're all overdoing this, right? And I think it's kind of taken a life of its own. And again, it's like we've done this year after year after year. It's just kind of, if we're going to make some changes, a chair comes up, proposes a resolution, says, I've got an amended resolution out here. If anyone, has suggestions, please send them to me. It's the series of going back and forth and making a decision outside.
I haven't heard back and forth. What I've heard was opinions were requested, people offered, the person who was the gatekeeper collected them, made choices, and then submitted a resolution. No committee meeting was ever held.
So
no
my
vote
issue
was
is
ever held.
My issue is if committee members are writing back and they're reaching an agreement on a particular draft, because
Who's
then
reaching the agreement?
So Marty, I'm not.
Gatekeeper is the only person involved here.
Marty, again, I'm not citing any particular committee. I'm using this as an example, and I'm saying if a committee does this, and I'm saying if a committee reaches agreement outside of it, and that's the issue that I'm saying, Marty.
Well, I'm asking you right now. Sylvia has been asked to add some whereases to embellish, to cure her resolution. If she contacts her board members, her committee members, and says, what do you think I should add? And 7 people write stuff in, and she selects 3 of them, is that a meeting?
My guess is that the best thing for Sylvia to do in that circumstance is to take Bob Bender's suggestions, which I don't think anybody, is really going to take objection to, which for the most part, most of our resolutions are like that. And, if she wants to go back to her committee beforehand, though, I don't think her committee would necessarily care about the things that Bob Bender is saying, and put forward an amended resolution at the board meeting, or even send it to her committee beforehand.
I don't understand that at all. Except SAPO has a time reference and she has to respond in a timely fashion. Well, she's doing as COG allows, is she contacts the member of the committee for suggestions, and she makes all the decisions. No vote is taken, and she has widened the resolution. I'm sorry to pick on you, Sylvia. It doesn't mean you at all.
No, that's okay. I have my opinion too. So go ahead.
So if Sylvia is just taking suggestions, I don't think you have it. I think the issue is if there's a back and forth amongst committee members sharing drafts.
I didn't hear back and forth from anything. You're making that up.
Marty, you're right. I am not naming any specific committee. I'm not naming any specific chair. I am using a hypothetical example right now for the purposes of this issue. If there is a back and forth, if there are drafts being circulated amongst committee members to reach agreement outside of the public, I think that's where the issue comes.
I have not suggested anywhere here that drafts are being circulated. Or the issue at hand was one particular committee in which the committee members were offered a variation of what they had, an embellishment of the one word, one line, whatever, one whereas, no, one therefore, and it was asked to embellish. They looked at it, they made suggestions. The gatekeeper is the one who made all the decisions. There was no back and forth. That's my understanding of the issue at hand, not hypothetical.
But Marty, I am going to hypothetical because I don't think it's fair to name any particular committee or chair. So I just ask you this in responding back. If there were a back and forth, if there were drafts being circulated amongst a quorum of committee members via email, do you believe there would be an issue with OML there?
I'd have to think a little more about that because my immediate response is no, I have no problem with it. But I want to think about that. Okay. On the other hand, what you have here is that, again, there was no back and forth. And if there were a back and forth, the issue was a quorum was never created. Individuals back and forth is not a quorum based upon this advisory opinion. So if I were to say, I need a little help, could you make a suggestion? And you made a suggestion and I wrote back to you and said, but didn't you really mean this? And you said, yes, that's not a quorum.
I'm not suggesting that that is, Marty.
Okay,
but
well, this thing hypothetically says that unless everyone receives it at exactly the same time and responds as one mind at the same time, that's a quorum.
I don't think that's what it says.
That's not the case.
I would disagree with that interpretation of this draft, but I'm going to end there. I hope I've conveyed my thoughts on this.
Sylvia, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, actually, all of that was said. If Bob had been at my meeting, he would have heard that I said exactly what he said. And putting it into my resolution does not have to go back to my committee because they all agreed with what I said at the meeting. So I don't think that my case is a good one to highlight.
The request made was in line with this discussion.
Yes.
What you do is your choice.
Right.
Oh, that's the email I sent. And then I try to see if this made any sense. I mean, we have followed practices before, and suddenly this became a hiccup, but I always want to point it out. The notice went out. Normally, we practice 24 hours in advance. The committee then votes on either an actual resolution, because the wording is before them, or a general idea, or they authorize the chair or a committee member to engage in wordsmanship. That I think we've always done that. That's historical. Committee minutes report the issue came up at the last one of the committee meetings, whether or not the committee minutes should reflect the resolution that got passed 2 weeks later, or the resolution that came out of the committee at the time. And the answer is the resolution that what took place at that meeting is what is to be reflected in the minutes. The following month, we'll get to that, the committee chair or designee cures the approved resolution or concept. That we've done all the time. Committee chair designee can consult with one, several, or all of the committee in wordsmithing or curing process, but cannot meet or converse with a quorum at any single time. To do so would require public notice. The executive committee then has a chance to review, which will be done tonight. Resolution either goes to the board. It requires further curing, which we recommended and which Bob was recommending. And C, the executive committee says, send it back to the committee to reconsider. Then the board can approve it, amend it, offer substitutions, reject it, or they too can recommend that it goes back to committee. And we in past have done all of this. And then 9, at the subsequent meeting of the committee minutes should reflect the actions that took place at the board. So the minutes would reflect the meeting, what was actually done at the meeting. The following month's minutes will reflect what may have taken place during the course of the month up until the next meeting. So that's all I have on this issue. I saw a hand go up and down. I think, Bob, you wanted to say something?
I do, Marty. Thank you.
Actually, it was Bob Finuzzi.
I'm sorry?
I thought it was Bob Finuzzi I saw. Did I see Bob Finuzzi?
No, Marty. I'm sorry. Not me.
Okay. So Bob Bender?
Yes. You know, we're having this discussion as though, I mean, I feel like I'm back in philosophy class where, you know, everything's sort of taking place in some sort of ethereal realm that doesn't touch reality. This situation has come up many, many times, and it almost always comes up in the same context, which is that there is a committee meeting where a presentation is made by a city agency or by some entity. When I was chair of the Parks Committee, several times we had somebody come in and present something to us, to the committee, which was, you know, fairly complicated. It happens at traffic and transportation. It happens at land use routinely. And sometimes at the end of the meeting, we will have a vote and come up with a rudimentary resolution. We'll sometimes have discussions, and somebody will say, you know, we need this whereas clause, we need that whereas clause. And what would often happen, and often does happen at, you know, going on in the present time at these same committee meetings, is that the hour's late. There are a lot of different whereas clauses that are being bandied about. And the chair says, you know what, let's take a vote on where we are on this presentation. We take a vote on it. We're in favor, we're opposed, whatever. And then the chair says, let's put together, let's have some discussion of the whereas clauses because it's late at night, it's complicated. You know, let's try to get this thing squared away. And that happens. And it happens involving the committee members over, you know, a certain period of time, the next several days, whatever. And then everybody says, okay, here's a resolution. Yeah, it looks good to me. It looks good to me. Fine. Okay. It always comes back to the board for a vote. It always comes back to the board for a vote. These conversations take place at the committee level. And then the resolution is sent into the board office and it's brought up for discussion at the board meeting. If any committee member or if any board member for that matter says, hey, you know, this resolution seems to me inconsistent with what happened at the meeting, or, you know, I don't think we got it right or whatever, that discussion takes place at the board meeting and then there's a vote. So I don't see any way in which I am in total agreement with you, Marty. I don't see any way in which the conversation that takes place among the board members, among the committee members, in the period of time between the committee meeting and the board meeting, I don't see any way in which that can be a violation of the open meetings law, given the fact that this is all going to come to the board and the board is going to have there's going to be a vote at the board meeting and that's going to be the final determination of exactly how the resolution reads and which clauses are approved or modified, which sometimes even takes place at the board meeting, as you and I and everybody on this meeting knows. Further discussion sometimes takes place at the board meeting and the resolutions are sometimes modified there. So this interim conversation that takes place, which has taken place for as long as I can remember on this board, that is not a violation of the open meetings law. And I don't care how you read the advice that you were given by COG, I don't see any way in which it lends itself to a reading that communication among the committee members during that interim period violates the open meetings law.
I have only one problem with what you said, and that is that you didn't say it 2 months earlier. You'd have saved me a lot of work.
I see one hand, David.
Yes. You know, in terms of open meetings, I think the issue really is whether the public was aware of decisions that were made after the meeting. If you know, a resolution is crafted or somewhat crafted at a committee meeting, and then the chair speaks to all the committee members or some of the committee members or none of the committee members, doesn't matter. If there's a change made to the resolution, the public should be made aware of that. And I think what we should be doing is forwarding to exec and moreover to the board a red line version of the resolution, that which was formally discussed in the meeting. And then these are the things that were inserted, or these are the things that were deleted. For example, again, not to pick on Sylvia, but Sylvia could present, here's a resolution. It was for the SEPO, and it was suggested that we put in this paragraph that's in parentheses that gives a little bit of history. And people can decide whether that is a material change. Now, there could be another case, for example, again, hypothetical, where there's a clause that says all of the residents of Broadway. And then somehow it becomes changed to some of the residents of Broadway. Well, somebody on the committee or somebody on the board could say, that's a material change and it needs to go back to the committee. But by doing the red lines of what was there from the end of the meeting to what happened in after the meeting through whatever consultations there were, clearly identifying those makes it certainly the spirit, if not the letter, of open meetings.
Rosemary, your hand is up.
Oh, thank you. I just, in my own mind, I try and make it as simple for me to understand as anybody else. The open meetings law, the purpose of the open meetings law is that the public can see not only decisions made, but how the decision was made. So therefore, I would urge, and every chair should do this, have your discussions in public. Go back and forth. Figure out what the wording should be in public. To change a period or a spelling, we're not talking about that. That is taking the conversation to someplace it doesn't belong. Have your discussions in public. Show the public not only the decision you're making, but how you reach that decision. If these discussions are on telephones or in emails or whatever, outside of the public committee meeting, you are on the edge of a problem. I'm not going to define what the specific problem is. It is crystal clear to me you're on the edge of a problem of not abiding by the spirit of the open meetings law. Have your discussions in public. Show the public how you're reaching the wording and the exact vote that you're taking. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Sergio.
Thank you. You know, I do tend to agree with what Rosemary said about the spirit of the law. And I know what we've done in some of the committees that I've been on, when it gets late at night, we don't reach a consensus, as we all know often happens, is that either we authorize the chair to craft an appropriate resolution within the spirit of the discussion, or I guess the other practice could be that if we didn't finish the discussion, then it's got to be a resolution from the floor, and we'll follow, and the public will have their notice that way. But the discussion that does happen is important, and I do tend to agree that that's what the spirit of the law is, and it's not just the end product. So perhaps there are different ways to get at that, but the discussion has to be. So if we get to the end of the meeting and we don't have it done, okay, guys. So you know, I think I got the gist. I'm going to present something from the floor. It'll be put out with the meeting notice, and people will just have their notice, and the discussions will happen accordingly. It may make the meeting longer, but the discussions will be there for the public to be involved.
Thank you, Sergio. Seeing no other hands, we'll move on with the agenda.
I have one other item.
Okay.
And then we have to get to your item, so I'll make mine very brief. What am I looking for? I'm looking there and there. This is not the right one. This is not the one I sent you. Lisa did a lot of good work on crafting this in a different format. And the one I sent you is the one that she worked on. But LRE has come up with guidelines for holding meetings. I sent you all the correct copy with some 4 observations about how this ought to be looked at. I'd like the executive committee, and not now because time is pressing and there's a big issue coming behind me about hybrid, but I'd like you to look at this. I'd like the board to consider it next week. And this is not meant to be rules that everyone has to follow. It's meant to be guidelines to make the conduct of the meeting appreciated and known by not only the board members, but also by the public that comes in to make comments on things we're discussing, considering. And so I'm going to leave this right here now. I like both the full board next week to look at it and next month for conversation so that we can put this in the manual as to how guidelines and how a meeting could, and I won't say should because each chair will do it in their own fashion, but at least announce to the public as to what they can expect, when they can expect, So I see Margaret's hand is up, but I'm done for now.
Let me see. Margaret.
Actually, my questions are probably best used for the next LRE meeting. I'll just keep them to myself for now.
Marty, we received this document, but the whole board, they'll get it before the next week. I
would certainly hope so, yes.
Yes, okay, so Kira, this document, and thank you for preparing it. I think it's an excellent belongs in the procedures guide. That'll go out to the full board before the board meeting. Okay.
Can you just please send it to the office, the correct version, so that we can send it out?
Well, the one I sent was the correct version, but I will send it again.
Make sure you send them again. Okay, just okay. So
I apologize. There's no other this is the final draft. Is that what I'm to understand?
Marty, is this the final draft or is this in progress?
For discussion. It's not the final draft. Everyone has to live by it, hopefully, but or be guided by it, but it's not the final draft. It's for discussion.
Okay. I was just curious. I think there have been a number of conversations. I guess I'll use SCREE as sort of the main focus point because that's what comes top of mind. But there's been a lot of conversations about, engaging different parts of the community and making sure that, we get to every corner of the district and we do this and we do that. My interpretation of the document that you sent is that community contribution at meetings is optional. I guess I just wanted some clarity around what does that really mean and what does that look like from the standpoint of recommendations on procedures. I guess I always had the impression that the community was actively supposed to be engaged during committee meetings, standing committee meetings and otherwise, special committees. But from the draft, it sort of, it made it seem optional.
I don't know where you get the idea optional from. It was never, come on. No, the wrong one again. It was never designed to be optional. The question was sequence. The open meetings law says the community has the right to be present and view. It doesn't say they have any, it doesn't say they have to speak. Our guidelines are they will speak. They're invited to speak. But there's a sequence, and the guidelines indicate what that sequence might be. Again, the chairperson has the responsibility, authority to decide if they want to change that sequence. But at least people coming to the meeting ought to know up front what to expect and when to expect it.
I think it's guidance for the chair to be helpful to the chair in running the meeting. It's from that vantage, correct, Marty?
Yes.
Yeah, that's, but again, it's, we'll have further discussion on it. Thank you, Margaret. I don't see any other hands, so we'll move on in our agenda. Okay, so committee member issues for discussion. I have sent to you the documents that Kira and I have received from the borough president's office, or from, you know, those documents were dense, a little confusing, kind of late coming, and put us under a time rush for sure. As they said, come June 4th, community boards will return to in-person meetings. And there are 3 things that boards can decide to do. One, if they decide to go for a hybrid application, the board must have a public hearing and a resolution. I took it, and our officers, that we want to have all options open, so we scheduled a public hearing for right before the main board meeting. Come along with that hybrid are a lot of regulations, which we'll go over in this resolution. If boards want to completely go in person and not have any public input, or you know, 100% of the board must be present, just as it was pre-COVID, where if you didn't show up, you were absent, no exemptions. Then they don't need a public hearing, they don't need a resolution, they don't have to do anything. But if you are interested in accommodating the public and in giving some wiggle room to, I would imagine, a small number of board members that they can continue to Zoom under certain circumstances, then that is called a hybrid. This resolution is a draft, and I want to thank Marty for his help on this, and my officers, and we'll go through it now. Okay, I think the best thing is, I'll read it. Whereas the New York State Legislature has passed and Governor Hochul has signed new legislation concerning implementation of the Open Meetings Law, which will remain in effect through June 1st, 2024. So there is a sunset provision on this legislation. Whereas Part WW of Chapter 56 of the laws of 2022 mandates that as of June 9th, 2022, all community board members must return to attending meetings in person unless the board chooses the hybrid model option, which allows an exemption for board members with extenuating circumstances, such as illness, disability, caretaking responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor which precludes the member's physical presence at such meeting to participate via video conferencing. And whereas under the hybrid model, board members who are exempt from attending meetings in person may vote off-site via video conferencing, but will not be counted towards the quorum. And whereas a board member appearing virtually must at all times be able to be heard, seen, and identified. And whereas in the event that a board member attends virtually, the name and specific reasons for virtual attendance will be noted in the monthly minutes. And whereas public engagement has increased significantly over the past 2 years, and the hybrid option allows for full participation at meetings on the part of the public via video conferencing. And whereas Bronx Community Board 8 held a duly advertised, well, to be done, hearing on May 10th, 2022 as required. And whereas Bronx Community Board 8 is researching and investing in appropriate technology and will endeavor to train board members in its use in order to implement the hybrid model, which will also allow for public participation. Therefore, be it resolved that Bronx Community Board 8 and its committees adopt the hybrid model to provide the public, including those with disabilities, the ability to attend and participate remotely, with the condition that the board reviews its efficacy in June 2023, when at such time a vote on its renewal will take place. Move up. Kira, move up. Thanks. Be it further resolved that public meetings of the board or its committees that utilizes video conferencing will be appropriately publicly noticed and include physical locations and remote links with directions on how to participate pursuant to the new open meetings law. These things, as if you looked at the material, were taken directly, and sometimes the exact language, from the rules and regs that we got. So there are advantages and disadvantages. An advantage that I see to being hybrid is we're really equipping our conference room and other things that we're doing to have most meetings in our conference room. And if the public can Zoom, then we don't have to find consistently, large venues, which are very far and few between, that we have found out. So if the public can Zoom, we can accommodate, much in our conference room. That's a big advantage. A disadvantage is that we will not have staff to assist us with cameras, hearing, sound. We're trying to make this as easy as possible, but the staff will not be attending these meetings. And so there will be some bumps, there'll be training, it's going to take time. But, from what I had heard at exec meetings, at full board meetings, there was a tremendous desire for us to try to continue the public participation using Zoom. So I'm open to questions and comments, and go ahead. Let me just see if there's any comments. Oh, one last thing. I got a notice today, this afternoon, that there'll be a meeting by the borough president's office on Monday. And what's her name? From the COO, Kristen O'Neill from COOG will be present to answer questions and to go over the law. All the boards are inundating the borough president, with questions and issues that they're having. So, we're all doing the best we can. And certainly I hope to hear some enlightenment on Monday as well. Of course, it's the day before we're gonna have our board meeting, but I think pretty much we are on target. So I see Bob Vanuzzi, I see David, I see Deb, I see Ed Green, Rosemary. So we'll start with Bob Fanuzzi.
Laura, thanks for the hard work. It sounds really good. I just wanted to ask a point of information about the policy. Who decides the exemptions?
Oh, they don't tell us that. Very good question. They do say it has to be in advance. There has to be notification. A board member can't just zoom in. You know, there has to be advance notice to the office. I guess the chair. You know, that's kind of vague.
So there would have to be a submission portal for that and notice of that, rules about how many days in advance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a question to bring to the event.
Yeah, and who the attendance police are, I cannot answer that right now.
Okay.
That would be open.
Yeah, so if you could forward that one. Yeah, thank you. So the purpose of this is to allow the public, but not the community board members, to be on Zoom to maintain attendance of community board members in person.
Yes.
But allow public participation. I'm not sure the gain, frankly. But anyway, that was my question, Laura. Thanks for your hard work and thoughtfulness.
Oh, thank you. We have spent many, I won't even say hours, I will say days, trying to prepare us and go the best way that we can. Thank you, Bob. David.
Yes, Kira, could you go back to the top, please? In principle, I'm very supportive of what they're trying to do here. I would just note, I'd call this draft hybrid meetings resolution, so it's a little more meaningful. But to get down to it, in the second paragraph, the issue of those exemptions that Bob was talking about, I fully support the idea of those who are disabled being able to take advantage of the remote, but illness and other significant and or unexpected factor is so loose. I mean, I could say, oh, I stubbed my toe, I can't come. I think that we should evolve into a rule that we say at least for ourselves, for our members, particularly for attendance reasons, and whether you've missed X number of meetings, that you have to be physically at the meeting. And I know there's more work to be done, and I know you're awaiting further input on some of these details, but in principle, I think that's something that we should do, along with changing the headline there. But thank you.
Well, well taken, David. The language in that particular whereas is taken directly 100%.
No, I understand
the guidance. And,
right,
and yes, it's loosey-goosey. It's all a little loosey-goosey. Obviously, if you're very sick, why do you'd be absent? You're sick, you're in bed, you're not at a meeting. But maybe you can't, this thing is very difficult. I mean, I think that there are more questions about this piece, but it's like it or lump it. If we go along with hybrid, this is it. But we could certainly refine and also see how it goes month by month. Obviously, if for some reason there's so many exceptional factors and we stop having quorum because they're not counted for quorum, we're going to have to really have a conversation about all this. And that's why it was my idea to sunset this and to say, you know what, we're endeavoring, we're going to try to do this. And then we're going to look at it a year, next June, and decide after we review whether we want to renew it.
Agreed.
Because this is a whole new animal. This is going to be, there are certain buildings like the Amalgamated that aren't set up for Wi-Fi. Even if you bring your own hotspot, this is what people are all talking about this. It may fail. So we may send out a Zoom link and have a meeting somewhere because it's a big meeting and it can't, we want to have that. And we may fail and they may not be able to come in, because right now it's so easy the way Zoom, we cannot predict. This is all on good faith. Okay. Everybody, there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road on this, but anyway, thank you for your comments.
Yep.
Let me just see. Ed is Deb, and then Ed.
I've got three things. One is that you were just talking about it actually is what happens if there's a technical difficulty. You know, how long?
Shoot
like,
me now is what I say.
Well, you know, just how long, does it constitute a meeting? Should the people who are in person, I think it's good just to decide in advance if the people who are in person, who are a quorum, should continue, even if they have made a good faith effort to try to get people online, you know, get the online hookup going, online sound going, online video going. And for example, if they can't get the video, but they can get the sound, should they continue? And if they can't get the sound, should they continue without the sound, you know, and still consider that a meeting? I think it would be good to determine that in advance, just so that there's some guidelines in case there are technical problems.
Good question. In my mind, Deb, you know that expression, the show must go on?
Exactly.
If people are there and
we're
having a meeting, and for some reason it's screwed up and we're not getting the feed, when it's just not happening, because some buildings, no matter what you do, they're not going to have Wi-Fi just because of the way the building is. This is what we've heard. So we will try to investigate all that, but the show must go on. So the meeting is going to go on the best we can, with sound, with it, you know, without, and people who really show up at the meeting, you know, they're going to speak. And we're endeavoring to have the people who want to Zoom be able to succeed. But like you said, the show must, you know, we don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be good to have it kind of documented as a best practice or a guideline in advance, so that the chair is not making it ad hoc, where it may seem like the chair is making a decision because they don't want the public to participate. Like, I think it would be good just to say,
interesting. We'll try to come up with some kind of procedures. Yeah.
The other thing too is that you and David were just talking about in terms of if you have board members that are attending virtually and they need to have specific reasons, maybe it's if board members have a pattern of not attending, similar to what you have now, just replicating that. Because you know, if a person has COVID, they may have very mild symptoms, which you certainly don't want them at the meeting. And you know, if I've stubbed my toe, I may not want to be at the meeting either. But that if I have a pattern, it's really the pattern of not coming to meetings regularly that's going to impact quorum and degrade the meeting. So that would be the suggestion I would put. I think it's in here, but if you're absent for the meeting, you have that's recorded in the minutes. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, I think that's here, right? I read that, didn't I? If you attend virtually, it's recorded, and the reason why.
Yeah. If you're a board member, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, you know, board member are not going to like that. You know, it's monitored. Everybody's going to see it. You won't lose track. You know, we're talking at committee meetings. It all has to be recorded in the minutes and the reason. You know.
Yep.
Again,
I mean, it's a brave new world. And then the final thing I would say is just in terms of a standard practice for the agencies. So are the agencies expecting to come to the meeting and then plug in to our system with their computers? Or can we actually just establish that we need them to give our presentation to the chair so that the chair can present on the online, can share the documents?
That's a very good question. Could the agencies, DOT, come in,
and parks,
right?
Are they planning on coming in with their computer, sitting it down and plugging it into the?
I just don't know. That's above my pay grade. I think it's the safest thing is for them to come in person. Mm-hmm. The safest thing.
I think they should.
But that's a very good question. I don't know if anyone has the answer to that. It's above my pay grade.
May I attempt anyway, or how I would see this ideally happening? Deb, in the past, when we would meet, a lot of times we would just request them to either bring a thumb drive or send us the presentation in advance, so that, you know, before it was just not to waste time or anything like that. But now, especially our conference room will be wireless. It'll just be a little more difficult to just hop on with a different computer. So yeah, I would certainly request that they would either bring a thumb drive or send the presentation in advance.
Yeah, and I would say now, especially now that fewer and fewer computers have actual ports on them, so that they should just send it in advance so that the chair has it.
Yes,
can present and have control. Okay, thank you.
The premise here is that the world is going back to the way it was. The exemption is for community boards, which means an agency has to attend our meeting, not be plugged in.
Okay. Pre-COVID, they would come with their thumb drive and we would put it on. Often it was our equipment. Again, a lot will fall on chairs because if you're not meeting in our conference room, you're going to have to schlep some equipment around and return it very quickly so that the next guy can use it. It's going to take a lot. So Ed, and then Rosemary.
Okay, I have two things. One is a little more minor, the other is more substantial. The first one, Bob Finuzzi really brought it up. It's the fifth whereas clause that in the event that a board member attends virtually, the name and specific reasons for virtual attendance will be noted in the monthly minutes. So I'm just thinking ahead that, these are things that probably, are there time limits for this? Is somebody going to get sick at the last minute, and should the board be notified and then the reasons be passed on to the chairs? Because if they're going to be reflected in the minutes, I think there has to be some type of communication beforehand to one specific source. I would suggest the board, and then passed on to the committee chairs so that it can be reflected properly in the minutes. That's just one issue. But to me, the bigger issue is the whereas clause that, talks about researching and investing in appropriate technology and training board members.
That's to be resolved. No, that's the last whereas.
Yes. So in order to implement the hybrid model. So this is my biggest concern, because I still have to hear everything that's going on with this. My inclination is, I'm for this, but what will this entail? And can we even pass this resolution without knowing what this process will amount to? So what type of burden does this place on the facilitator? And, is it practical for one person to do this? We really don't even have, I think we just need to get a better picture of what this entails before we can even pass this resolution. Because what are we taking on? What are we voting for? Do we understand what we're even taking on here? So I think we just need to maybe try to get a clearer picture in terms of what type of equipment is necessary, what more burdens the chairs or whoever's going to be. It sounds like something that needs multiple people. I don't know at this point, so I don't know if anybody has any ideas. That's it.
Well, there's audio and here. I do think that the chairs are taking on a lot. It occurred to me, and I will clarify this on Monday, come June 4th, which is right around the corner, if you want to, if you're going to do hybrid, you're supposed to be set up here. I have a question that if in June, we didn't, we gave ourselves more time so that we have the summer for the training and to research and to find out more, it would necessitate us having a public hearing, because having the public hearing gives you the options, and people could vote against this. I wrote, this is written in such a way, people might be negative on it and then don't vote for it. And then we end up, everybody just back in the pool, and this goes away.
Right.
On the other hand, people seem to express a lot of interest in continuing certain elements of the Zoom. But my point is, if in June, we just said everybody has to attend in person, that's it. My question is, could we then start in September with this, having had a public hearing, and then not vote right away on this, not vote in May, but vote in June, on June 20th, vote in June to give us a few more weeks to think about this, because this is very rushed. And that's the main complaint all the community boards are saying. We have a calendar, and the calendar for us to have to do this on May 10th, when we just got this other stuff 2 days ago. And then I think it was after the 21st, you know what I mean? We're getting all this stuff and trying to follow the protocols, but it is I agree, it's very rushed. Do we know what we're getting into?
Well,
you know,
that's the whole thing. I don't know. I don't know that I couldn't. I don't know if I.
Then
could
people will
hold on
scream
something
in
when we
June
don't-
if we have
when
to
we don't know
find
what it
all.
entails.
You know, we have to excuse no board members. In other words, go back pre-COVID, the way it was. You're sick, you're absent. You know, I mean, we might be able to do that. I have some questions about this, and I'm going to ask on Monday at the meeting about the timing that the boards have to do. Is it all lockstep? Is it all, you know, is there any wiggle room here for when we would start this? So I said enough. I'm sorry. Ed, there's more questions or?
No, that's it. It's just, to me,
Okay.
the technological aspects of this are the big unknown. And if you don't know what it entails technologically, I don't see how we can vote on something if we're going to take on a project that we don't even understand. But that's
Kira has spent many hours researching, meeting, looking in books for the proper equipment, talking to the fellow who's going to come rewire us. You know, we've invested a good chunk of time, but are we there yet with what we need to know? And how we need a crystal ball, you know what I mean? So thanks, Ed. Rosemary.
So I'm getting more confused as the conversations go on. Just so when does this start? I'm reading this language as of June 9th of this year, we have to return. Is that not the date? This has to be done by June 9th, right? No?
Right.
Marty's shaking
well,
his
after
head
June, after June 4th.
This resolution is not an on-off switch. This resolution says at such time as we're capable of meeting all the requirements, that's when we do it.
Okay, so that's my question. What does the law demand us to do? What is, I just don't understand. What does the law demand us to do?
Have a public hearing and pass a resolution if you're going to go hybrid.
And it doesn't say when you have to go hybrid? It doesn't say that.
Our resolution says that we are endeavoring, and that, you know, we don't say it in this resolution because I don't know it. I just know that in other words, I didn't say it, but it's a good question. Marty seems to feel, because I have discussed this with Marty, that if we're not ready, we could have the public hearing and we don't have to have a resolution yet. I mean, so we don't have to start yet. In other words, we can't start without the resolution, but we could maybe put it off a month.
The law is amended as of June 9th. So there needs to be a decision made by June 9th if the board is going to be going back to all in person, or if they're going to be going hybrid, there would have to be a public hearing prior to June 9th.
And a resolution.
What we're trying to figure out is, what if we want to let June go by, meet totally in person, and then come back and discuss hybrid come September or something like that. But the law is changing as of June 9th.
Okay, the law changes, but the law does.
Rosemary, go ahead. Marty, wait.
But the law does not dictate a specific date by which we must be operational. That's my question.
I don't think so, because it's like you have to decide one way or the other what you're doing. You're hybrid or you're not hybrid.
Again,
otherwise you can't operate. You have to have a system.
I understand they say you have to, by June 9th, you have to make a decision which way you're going to go. That isn't my question. My question was, does the law go further to say by a particular date you must be operational in your decision? That's my question. Either the law is silent or it gives a date.
I don't believe it goes further to give a date.
Okay. Now, the next question is the public can, in the hybrid method, the public can still attend where the community board committees and board meet, right?
Yes. They're going to get both information and the agenda. They're going to get a place and they're going to get a Zoom link.
Okay, so they can physically come, and that I think that becomes my concern when it comes to our community board office. if there is an issue that spurs a lot of interest, there is not enough room in there to really.
I agree. We would have to. I agree, but our bet is that given the option to Zoom, most of the public will do that. That is our hope. If we're going through this,
you could, once again, you wanted a crystal ball. That's what you need, but the fact remains, and you know it, Laura, there will be issues that will spur.
Oh yeah, no, those places we would go to the Y. We know those issues. You're absolutely right.
So then just when it comes, you got to be so furious about this. How do they dump this without proper time? None of us get paid for this. This is ridiculous. Is there a way, or maybe on Monday you might ask, when it comes to the equipment, I'm very concerned about the equipment. I don't think it is a great face to the public that we screw up the equipment and they don't get to see it online. Is it possible? Could somebody think about this? And the Borough President's Office should be helping to hire a consultant to come. Now, you're not going to hire a person on salary, but a consultant to be with us for the first 6 months, to hold hands through every single meeting. If staff is not going to be there, it's the thought to hire a consultant that might be with us for the first 6 months. Just a suggestion. And that's a money thing. And somebody should be paying for that and not us.
But again, that's a good suggestion, but we need time to hire, develop, find out, you know what I mean? And that gets to your point about how this was just thrust on us.
Okay, and just my last point, if you, I did read both the law, we got different packages from the office, and thank you for that. There's a requirement in there that if anybody asks for a transcript of the meeting, we are required to give them a transcript, a written transcript. You take a 3 or 4 hour community board meeting, you're going to be paying somebody a lot of money to do a transcript. Once again, I think that is an unfunded mandate, and I think either the state legislature that passed this or the Borough President's Office should have a pool of money that can pay for transcription if somebody uses and requests us.
I think in the original open meetings law under which we're operating now with Zoom, there was something in there about transcript. But
yes, nobody has asked.
There was, but we were told that recordings and minutes are fine. We never did transcript, even right now.
Well, nobody asked, right?
No, there was language. There was some language saying transcript.
I know, but nobody asked for one.
But we were told that if you give recordings, which we do to anybody who asks, and minutes, we don't have to do transcripts. That's what we were told.
You have that in writing from someone? Get it in writing.
It was Rosemary, you were chair. I remember we had a meeting. We talked about transcripts that we're not doing. We don't have to do minutes. Will satisfy that requirement.
And that
started in April.
Again, let's do this off. Like, I don't want to waste everybody's time with this. Transcript came in at a particular time. It wasn't always with us. So okay.
I don't think that'll be a problem, but that is an absolute thing to check. Absolute.
Okay, hiring a consultant, I think, would be very, very good. And getting places. The city charter does say that we have a right to go to the borough president and say, get us a location for a meeting. You know that? It's in the city charter. So wouldn't be a bad thing to point out at the meeting.
Today we heard from Tom that schools will not be available at the rate, without payment. And even with payment, schools seem to be off the equation. Because we just got an answer. We had asked that question and we just got the answer today.
Okay.
And we're in trouble because we can't use nursing homes because they're not letting anybody in, St. Patrick's, this one, that one, rehab. A lot of our spaces were that, were some kind of nursing home. So we're in trouble. And now the schools are kind of off limits. So no, this is very serious, and I have lost many hours of sleep over this. And these are very good comments and questions tonight. All right, hiring a consultant, and the other one about the transcripts. Okay, Because
Hey,
you know
good luck.
something, if we have to do all this, then I wouldn't vote for this. So it's a
I
question of
agree.
finding it out. And all right, so Dan, thank you,
you.
Rosemary. Dan.
Hi, Laura, thank you. So my question is, over the last few months, we've kind of been having a conversation about video cameras and stuff. Kira, perhaps maybe you're the best person to do this. Can we get a status check on what we do have equipment-wise right now?
Sure.
Like if we had to implement in the month of June, what do we have? And are we contemplating a Zoom model from a chair's laptop?
No. There's, like I said earlier, there's office laptops. Do you want me to type this up to you and send it to you, Dan?
No, I'm just asking, like right now, if we had to do this meeting tomorrow and we used an office laptop to do a Zoom meeting so that way the public had access and can participate actively with the meeting, what other equipment do we have in the office right now to aid in this meeting that we would need to utilize?
So we have the streaming cameras. We have 2 cameras, tripods, the wiring, should we want to use those. Obviously that's harder to kind of span the room, that people would need to man those cameras. We have microphones that go onto the tables in front of people so that they can be heard. We have the sound mixers to go along with those microphones. What am I missing? We have mini projector that can also be streamed into the computer. But like I said, come Friday, the conference room will have a camera installed, a new TV installed, wireless keyboards and things like that. The TV would virtually become a computer. But that's just for the conference room. So obviously this is going to be a lot of work schlepping this equipment, making sure it works in other venues.
So in linking up the 2 cameras to the Zoom meeting, are there
Dan, you're not coming in clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Not perfect.
So there's 2 other streaming cameras in addition to the laptop that's running the meeting. Is there a hub that's set up in streaming the other cameras? Are the other cameras set up as different users of the Zoom meeting?
No, they would be hubbed together. But again, I'm still kind of unclear on the cameras because we're not going to have 2 people manning those cameras, if you will.
Understood. That's why I was asking if they were, that's why I was asking if it was contemplated, to have them as additional users somehow within it, but it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. The different people I've met and talked to, that's how they do it. I don't really like that model personally because I did that as a job in college, streaming volleyball games, and it was very difficult then, and I had state-of-the-art equipment. So yeah, I don't think that's ideal. So I'm still working on that end of it. But if
we had to do this tomorrow, we could do it. We have the equipment at least to do it.
We have the equipment. The training, obviously, no, because I'm still trying to figure it out. You probably could figure it out, Dan, as well. But it's just training some of our other committee chairs and probably 1 or 2 other people on those committees. One person on each committee isn't really going to cut it. There needs to be some people who can help troubleshoot. But yeah, we, just to go back to Rosemary's thing, Laura and I have talked about hiring consultants, interns, trying to figure out, the best way to go with that. But, all of this does take time. And I do want to just note, and I don't want to get too far off topic. We got this from this new law from the mayor's office. It was us who sent it to the borough president's office asking for advice. The borough president's office never saw this until we sent
memo, the first one.
Yeah. So we brought it to their attention and they started scrambling, out of control because something was sent to the boards without them knowing. And all these questions have been raised and most boards are going completely back in person because they don't have the staff, the technology, and the board members aren't really willing to learn the technology, or unable to do so. So, Dan, I think I answered your questions, and I can, if you do want more information, I can send you exactly what we have.
No, you answered the question perfectly. Thank you, which is we have the equipment to do it if we need to. It's a matter of training the chairs to actually do it and for us to hone the process of how we actually are going to do it. And I would just reiterate with what everyone said. I think consultants and interns are an excellent idea.
It's not just the chairs to be trained, because the chair has to run the meeting. There needs to be many board members on deck, you know, to assist. It can't just fall on the chairs. And that's why the resolution says training of board members, not just committee chairs.
Yeah, the more people trained on this, the better.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Dan. Marty.
Yes, I do not believe, Kara, that we have the equipment to do this. When I first read the information that was submitted to me, I was thrilled that they come right in front and middle, that the whole world is going back to normal, but community boards have an exemption. That's wonderful. We have an exemption until you read the requirements. And the requirements are that not only do we have to be able to see each other in this hybrid fashion, but that every member has to be able to see each other, so that it's not just 7 of us or whatever number on hybrid and we can be heard. It's that we have to be face to face with the people who are actually there. In addition, community members have to have the opportunity to speak and be heard. May not be called upon, but to have the opportunity. I never heard of Zoom until COVID, but I do not know what the technology is that will enable us to do everything that's being asked of us in this marvelous exemption that we have.
Marty, just to go off of that, I've checked with many people. I've showed them what we have. And we have technically what we need to do to make it work. You know, obviously
Please
there's always
tell me
bigger
how a
and better.
community member, please tell me how a community member can speak and be heard in this system.
Through Zoom, through the computer.
But everybody has to see everybody. I think there are so many.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Technically, we have the basic equipment that we need. Obviously, there's always bigger and better. But the question that was asked of me was, do we have the equipment to run this tomorrow? And I believe the answer is yes. Could I put it all together tomorrow and use it? No, I couldn't. But we have what we need to do so. We've been given a lot of funding over the years, and with the officers, we were able to purchase this stuff unbeknownst to us that we were going into a pandemic. So we do have a lot of equipment never used. Some of it was out of date and I had to order new things. But the question that was asked of me is, do we have the equipment? And yeah, you're right. There's probably better cameras than what we have, more appropriate for what we need. But again, I was just answering the question. So.
I also want to just interject that the reason the board member calling in or zooming in has to be seen. And again, it's all puzzling to me, and I understand is because they could vote. So the open meetings law wants to make sure that the person who's voting is being seen and it's a board member. And, and one of the questions I have is like, we have Georgia doesn't use a computer. She calls in. We know her phone number, so it should be fine. And I don't want to make an issue of this, but we know the phone number and we know George's voice, but I understand why they're being, picky about, since you could vote, you can't just, you have to be seen. So, because of the vote. We have.
I didn't finish yet, please.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Again, this is not just for the benefit of community board members. And Bob asked the initial question, which has bothered me from the beginning. What is an appropriate exemption? What is this extenuating circumstance? If everyone gets amalgamated blue and only 24 people show up at the meeting and suddenly there's no quorum, then we're going to start making enemies. And if you begin to take off for a certain reason and somebody else, now it's all listed month after month, we will know who took off and what the reasons were. But I know that in the beginning, early on, we used to have an item on the minutes saying excused absence. And we got out of that business very quickly because nobody wants to be in a position to say what an excuse is appropriate and what is not. So the same thing here. What an exemption, who's allowed to use it, why they're allowed to use it is another problem. So, and the most important thing here is this resolution does not say that tomorrow morning or June 9th or June 10th, we will suddenly be on this new system. This resolution is supposed to say when we have the technology and ability to implement all the requirements, then we can decide whether or not we want to have any meetings under this hybrid system. I will vote for it on the idea that it's when we have the system in place, not that it starts tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. I don't know what their expectation is, but then again, you know, this is like magical thinking on their part. Sorry, where was I? Is there anybody who hasn't spoken once? Sylvia, let me go to you before I go to people who have already spoken. Sylvia.
I just want to say that you talk about taking equipment back and forth and bringing it back so the next person can have it. I am a person who doesn't drive anymore. I would not be able to do that at all. That is a factor that I think you should figure in or ask at the borough president's office as to, you know, are they going to give me a driver? You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. Not only that, but we're doing all this figuring. They are doing all this figuring. Equipment is being bought. And guess what? The virus is still with us. It's now at a medium level. Nobody knows which way it's going to go. I think that's the realistic part that we should be considering, or they should be considering in demanding to have this kind of thing. I think it's totally out of kilter. I really do.
There's a line in there, you're absolutely right. There's a line in there that at the very, very end that says, all this is moot. If you have an emergency, the governor declares an emergency, and then it's everybody on Zoom, the way it has been. They could still do that if we have another health crisis. That's not precluded.
Well, do we have to be dead, or do we only have to
go but right
to the
now
hospital, or what is it?
No. What I mean is citywide, just the way it was an emergency. It was an emergency power that they, you know, they superseded the open meetings law and said that we could meet remotely, because it was always the law that we had to meet in person. Always, that's the way it was. And then they rescinded that piece. So because of COVID, they could do that again. If the governor felt that the state was in, you know, an upswing and we're all getting, you know, and the way it was, they'll do that again. But right now, they don't consider that. And they're going to say, get somebody else on your committee to schlep for you, or somebody else will have to do it. They're not going to, you know, those are the
Some of the committees only have 3 people, Laura. I mean, you know,
listen, this may not pass.
More, but,
this may not pass.
Know.
I base this on, you know, a sunset period for us. And I based it on what had been expressed by the board in the past. But truthfully, I don't know if this is going to pass. And I'd like to hear from the executive committee, you know, everybody, what they think of this, because that would be helpful.
Well, that's what I think of it. I think that it's figured out. I think that, like Rosemary says, there are costs involved that they have not considered, but our allotment of money isn't going to increase because of what they're expecting us to do. I mean, there's so many. Ed had good points. Bob Fanuzzi had good points. It's just a puzzle to me that educated people came up with this. Really,
this is what they came out with. Absolutely, yeah.
I know.
This is it. And I know this is going to be very rough. No matter what we do, it's going to be very rough. Okay, everybody has spoken once. Can we keep our comments brief? There's a few more people, because then I'd like to ask the people who haven't spoken what they think. Is that, if that's all right? I really want to get a sense.
Yeah.
Marty, you know, what do you call that? A straw poll? Like a
straw poll, yes.
So David,
yes.
Go ahead.
David,
I'll try to be very quick.
It is getting late, and I want.
Yes, I'll try to be very quick. Two things. One, it says very clearly that Chapter 56 of the laws says that all community board members must return to attending meetings in person unless the board chooses a hybrid model. So if we do nothing in the next on Tuesday or in the next 5 weeks, we must meet in person. It's very clear. Okay. Yes. So. All right, that aside, I mean, because there was confusion about that earlier. We either do hybrid, we agree to hybrid, or we meet in person. That's it.
Exactly.
Okay, in terms of the technology, I think we're getting a little too complicated. There are two very straightforward elements to the technology. Okay, we made a gamble with Zoom, a very, very good gamble. It worked out very, very well. Zoom is still in place. We can still use Zoom. The other half of the technologies, maybe we won't be able to use laptops or desktops to connect to Zoom in the office, but we will have the large monitor and there will be some computer in the conference room. And so the only real wrinkle in this whole thing is a camera that can show, say, the whole table at once to, you know, to display all the faces. But everybody, you know, from the community who calls in, we'll see them in their typical Zoom windows. So that won't change. The Zoom is in place. It's only the PC, personal computer connection to Zoom from the office. That's the only thing that changes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm concerned about other venues. I think that we're going to be set up pretty good in the office, though, you know, but.
All right, well, then we'll deal with that when that comes about. Just like, you know, we'll deal with absences and whatnot as that evolves.
Right. Okay, Bob Fanuzzi and then Ed.
Yeah. Laura, this is going to be hell. Okay. There's no benefit for the community board. None. We're going unless you meet some kind of standard of an exemption. This presents a burden on the community board. Let's think about this in terms of one question. Does it increase our public benefit? Does it let us do our public function better? Okay, because it is neutral with regard to the community board. 9/10 of us will be in person. Whether, and maybe a 10th or a quarter will seek an exemption for any given meeting. But we're going to be doing more, and we're going to be managing technology on the spot without staff. So we have to understand if there is a benefit for the public to the hybrid model. Now, am I right? Did you say that we are actually going to lose venues because of lack of Wi-Fi? And that will be more sequestered in the community board office because of that?
Yeah. As it was explained to me, certain buildings, even Kingsbridge Heights Community Center, you know, we were discussing the places that said we could go there, whether they, whether that would work because of the thick walls, because of the building, you know, and you know, so it's going to be hairy. But the thing is,
but anyone who has been chair or a committee chair knows that our impetus is always to get out into the community, okay? And if that's hampered by a Wi-Fi requirement or capability, and we are having more meetings in whatever office, in whatever single location, then we have to really measure whether that lack of public outreach is overweighed by the Wi-Fi or the streaming benefit to the general public. And I realize after you said that we have all kinds of Wi-Fi difficulties, we are subtracting one of our huge advantages, which is the ability to move. So we have to really question, does this make allow us to do our public role, serve our public function better. Rosemary, I also want to go back about 6 years ago to a report I submitted to your LRE when you were chair. And this does seem like a sneaky way to get us to do what they wanted us to do years ago. And it's making me want to revisit one of your committee meetings when we did discuss this. You and I can talk offline about this, but I remember providing detailed, not testimony, but information from borough board level about what was involved in streaming and all. I know the technology has changed, but we did have something of a discussion on this in LRE many, many years ago. Okay, so we can look back at this and see if there's any history there. But I really wanted to say that when we decide this, it's not whether it's technologically possible, is it publicly beneficial? Okay, that's my question. Thank you, Laura.
Since we don't have large venues, it allows us to use our board office and, or smaller venues. It's a problem. This thing is a terrible headache.
Yeah,
it's
and this
terrible.
may trap us. It may trap us whereas we're eager to be out.
Well, I mean, and also in June, if you don't have a resolution or a very, a time-sensitive thing, you may not want to hold a committee meeting in June. Many committees don't hold a meeting in June. That's been a tradition, and that would be helpful in June.
Well,
we're trying to get.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Laura.
Oh,
Laura, may I add just one thing in response to Bob? Just regarding the Wi-Fi, Bob, I think you bring up good points. And one thing I can say is we kind of liked the idea of meeting in the conference room, or not even liked it, because I don't think anyone likes that office, but it was kind of just one of our only options because we control our Wi-Fi. I know how to troubleshoot my Wi-Fi if it goes down.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not in that position at the Amalgamated or Kingsbridge Heights or, some of these churches. Sometimes they just leave us the door open. I can't start kind of going through their technological, things. So I think you raised a good point. And sometimes Wi-Fi is not reliable, even in our own homes. It's not going to be reliable in some of these big venues.
But the core goal of bringing issues to the communities impacted by them would be altered by the liabilities of Wi-Fi outside a controlled environment. Yeah. And I would really fear that we would exacerbate digital divides, which everybody knows what that is, but also lose that unique ability when we're not in the community that's impacted by our decisions.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. Thank you.
Ed.
Okay, I think there's been a great discussion and it's clarified things a little more for me where I stand with this. And I like a lot of the things that Bob Fanuzzi just mentioned also. So as it is now, I do not support, you mentioned a straw poll earlier. So that's I'll throw my straw to the poll is that I don't support this at this point. The one thing I will say that I begrudgingly not support this because one of the most important things I think about having hybrid would be giving access to people with disabilities, which I think would be a pretty noble thing to do. But we had a world before COVID too. So what did we do? When people were sick, they didn't come to meetings. That's it. So. Right. As far as the disabilities are concerned, we do have, there are venues that have, ramps and all kinds of ways for people with disabilities to access these venues. So it's not the be all end all when it comes to that either, although it would lessen the burden in a lot of cases. It's not like people with disabilities would not have any access that they wouldn't have had previously, as far as I can tell. So the last thing I'll just say also is that I actually do have quite a bit of experience with hybrid meetings because I'm a member of TW Local 100. We do have, and I'm part of the union staff, and we do have hybrid meetings, not only for our union staff meetings, but also for our divisional meetings now also. So I could tell you that my union, I mean, with all due respect to our staff, and our staff is wonderful here, but the resources we have at our union are far superior to anything we have at the board. And we have technological problems. We had some serious ones at our last meeting that got people so frustrated they were just throwing up their hands in just misery. So I've had hybrid meetings that have gone very successful, that have gone off without a hitch. And I've had others that have been complete nightmares, like the most recent one I went to. So that's it. And somebody mentioned there is, okay, you have the in-person meetings, the cameras are on, let's say, the committee members, but then unless you have some type of a panoramic camera or different cameras, you're not going to have anybody on and any cameras on the speakers coming from the floor, up from the floor, or and there's microphone issues. I can just tell you, there's been absolute nightmares with this. So that's something to be considered. Whatever equipment we may have, I can guarantee it doesn't match the stuff that we have from our union. And we have in-house IT techs too. So and last of all, I'll say is I had a little bit of experience when I was vice chair for Dan of schlepping around equipment, helping Dan schlep around equipment. So that's not something to look forward to either, especially as Sylvia mentioned. I don't drive either at this point. So then what kind of a burden does that put on people that they're schlepping around potential equipment that they may not even know how to operate properly? So I'm against this right now. Like I said, it's unfortunate that we couldn't, about the disability issue, but I would not want to support this. I think as Bob Fanuzzi mentioned, it's a Pandora's box nightmare ready to just jump out at us if we adopt something like this. That's it. My husband, Rob, has been a community member of ENS for 30 years. His nickname is Techie because he was always the one that, everybody knows he's called Techie. He would schlep the equipment to the meetings and stuff like that and run it. And, so I know exactly what you're saying. Somebody has to do it in the commit, you know what I mean? So, all right. Can I turn it over to you, Marty, at this juncture to just kind of go through a straw poll, or how do you want to do this?
At this point, just do a roll call vote
okay.
And have a sense of how people feel.
Yeah, I'd like to go into the full board with a sense of how we really feel. And then, so you support it, or you're abstaining at this juncture, or you're opposed at this juncture. Realizing, everybody, as we get more information, this is fluid. This is just a moment in time now, based on the limited things that we have. How are you leaning? All right, so that's what a straw poll is. Okay, so why don't we start with the attendance?
Okay, Sylvia?
Yeah. I abstain.
Bob Bender?
Yeah, I'm going to abstain too, and I just want to say this. I heard the discussion. It's a good discussion. A lot of important issues were raised. There are only two choices here: this and all in person. And my concern is, Bob Fanuzzi raised a lot of good questions about public access and all this. We're going to have a very hard time finding institutions that will allow us and members of the public into those institutions. I'm really concerned, as bad as this situation is, that the all in person, which is the only alternative, the only other model we're allowed now, could be even worse. So I'm still thinking this through, and that's why at the present time I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joy?
I'm going to abstain also.
Margaret? Della? Margaret Della? Is she still here? I don't see her anymore. Rosemary Ginty?
I think there's so much unknown. I think I have to say abstain, but I will, because I think Laura's asking a good question. What do people really think here? I'll abstain now, but I'm leaning toward a no.
Okay. I'm voting yes. Ed Green?
No.
Bob Fanuzzi?
I'm going to say what Rosemary said, abstain, leaning towards no if you had to hold me to it. I just don't know the public benefit.
Okay. David Gelman?
I'm going to say yes. And I just want to remind everybody that we can adapt over time. We can start with meetings in the office where all the equipment will be set up. And over time, if we feel the need to expand out into localities, we can do that. And when we're ready, but we'll be able to get more people to participate in a hybrid model via Zoom than trying to figure out how to get everybody into our tiny office or the schools that we can't go to.
Okay, Ramdot?
At this time, I would say abstain because of the level of uncertainty, but I would be leaning more towards a yes, just because people on our community, the Parks Committee have voiced their concern about moving back into in person and not being able to participate.
Okay. Dan Paternak?
So I think the benefit, I think we've seen through Zoom, the amount of people that are able to participate. Our board attendance, I believe, has gone up in the last 2 years. Our attendance at meetings have gone up. If I had to vote, and obviously this isn't a vote, I would say yes. And I would do that with Marty's, statement that it's not going to happen tomorrow. It won't happen immediately June 10th, but when we're ready to do it. So I would vote yes.
Okay. Laura?
I would vote yes, simply because we don't have the venues. So I would try to make this work. But I certainly understand, I have a lot of trepidations about it. And I don't think, we're going to be able to try this right away, but I'm willing to try it.
Marty?
I vote yes. I pointed out, and it was repeated now, this resolution says when we're able to do it. It doesn't say that when we're able to do it, we have to do it. A committee could still meet in person, even though we have the option of being hybrid. So I would vote yes with that flexibility.
Okay. Julia? Julia Gomez?
I would support this. I'm all in favor of options.
Okay. Deb? Travis?
Yeah, I support it. To speak to Bob's concerns about the public benefit, I think that it does give us a lot more options, and that we've seen that there's been a lot more public participation with Zoom, that we still have the option if we, it would allow us to have smaller spaces in like local areas, like, kind of throughout the community board, as long as they have Wi-Fi. And if they don't have Wi-Fi, we can experiment with hotspots. But I think that the community I know they've attended our meetings and said that they really support being able to continue to be remote, particularly if they're afraid of COVID or exposure to COVID, or they have disabilities, or they just really enjoyed participating in meetings, particularly in traffic and transportation. We have very large meetings. And I think that there would be a real risk for folks coming, getting close together, having a lot of people all at one meeting. I think that would discourage some people from attending. So I do support this.
Okay. And Sergio?
I absolutely support it. I think the benefits far outweigh any of the risks, and whatever risks there are, we've got good staff and we've got people who are of good faith who will work to make them out. And I think the board deserves to hear our voices and know that how many of us support it and why. Thank you.
Okay, so
Rob, it's Ed Green. If I may, I'd like to change my vote to an abstain based on what Marty said. I was not aware that committees do have the power to I thought we would be locked into this. So if the committees do have the option of having in person or either or, then that would sway me to not cast a no vote in this if we do have the option. Is that the case?
I think
Board
there might
members
be a
have no
misunder-
option.
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding.
The board members don't have a choice. We're going back to in person. With those under hybrid, the extenuating circumstances bit.
No, my question is, does the committee have the option to install the hybrid resolution or not install the hybrid?
The board, no, not a committee, the board. This is going to be for the full board and its committees.
Or I think what Ed is asking
Be a policy.
is that would a committee be able to choose to be only in person? And I think Marty said that was the case, that it could be.
I don't know. I don't think
No,
so.
I
Let's
think
talk about
it's
that.
one board decision. It's a blanket policy.
Then
I don't think so.
But let's check on it.
But we'll have that answer on Monday.
Well, then, you know, I'm going to abstain then, because if that's the case, then my vote, yes, it will be no, if that's the case. But
Well,
right now I'll abstain. We're going to have a further vote on this anyway.
okay. Now,
Okay.
now the
So the
question-
yeses were 9-7 abstain. So that was the straw poll.
Oh, say that again. How many were yes?
It was yes, 9. 9 people
Mm-hmm.
voted yes, and 7 voted to abstain. And was there any, without Ed, I don't think there was any.
There were no
Sylvia
no's.
was
Absolute no.
Sylvia was abstained. There were no
Yes,
no's.
Oh, I'm sorry,
there were no
abstention.
no's.
Yeah, yeah.
Once Ed
All right.
pulled out.
Okay, I have a question. When I read the documents, it said that the board has to specify about, does this resolution cover committees, for example, committees? I don't know. So, I mean, do I do this, say, just for the full board's meetings, and committees can be exempt from this resolution, and therefore committees would have to be 100% in person with no hybrid?
We have to ask that on Monday.
Yeah, do you understand me? I hadn't really thought of that, and that's why this is an important discussion for me. I don't know that it could be, but it's the committees that really a lot of people come to. But that's a question. I have another question. In order to make that June date, I arranged to have this public hearing, which we're going to have, and then we get that out of the way, no matter what we want to do. Whoops. No matter what we do. Do we feel that we're going to have a vote by the board? I mean, we could have a public hearing and have a discussion and not vote on a resolution, you know, table it or whatever. Is there any thoughts about what to do on Wednesday night as far as the vote?
Well, how long can we table it? Because by June 9th, if it's not decided on, then it's a no, I'm assuming, correct?
If we don't vote for a Tuesday, there's nothing, because there's no other meeting before June 9th.
Correct.
Well, that's why I'm having the public hearing.
Right.
Well,
I think we should have a vote in the meeting after the hearing, and if it goes down, it goes down, but the public will have been heard. And the
right,
board members
we're
will
definitely
have been heard.
having the public hearing. I don't know, maybe I'm confused, maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm just thinking.
So Laura, unless you call a special meeting, the board meeting isn't until June 29th.
Right. No, so we're going to do a vote.
Right.
All right. So you know what? Thank you. We're clarified. We're having a public hearing, and better or worse, we're going to have a vote. And you know what? I don't know whether this will pass or not because of all these issues. And it's going to be a long discussion. And a lot of, you know, board members will not have read everything. I believe, Kira, this last memo that just came yesterday or the day before, that was sent to exec. We'll send that to the full board.
Okay.
You know, we sent the first document to everybody. Okay. And now the second one, and maybe we'll get some more documents on Monday at this meeting, Monday afternoon. But all right. So look, everybody think about this. I thank you for your opinions, honesty. It's been very, very difficult. It's going to remain very difficult. Yeah. And it's out of our control, you know, and that's it.
Laura, what's going to really sell this to me is if the public feels that it's a benefit to them, and we need to know that at the public hearing. So you need a nice turnout.
Foregone conclusion. You know what I mean? Because they don't have to deal with the nuts and bolts. I think everybody's going to say they're going to want to be able to do that.
Okay.
You know,
if that's what we hear, then our decision is easy. Okay.
Now I heard like at Board 12. What they're doing is YouTube. So the public, they're not doing this, but the public would be able to watch in real time the meeting that's going on, but they can't speak. No, and they, you know, so they're going back to the old pre-COVID, but they're adding this component.
Yeah, the borough board model. Yeah,
the bar like they do with the borough board, and you know, very few boards that I've heard of are doing this model, the hybrid. Very few, because there's so many challenges. Yeah. But they may be better with having space for the public and the boards. You know what I mean? Like every board is different. But all the boards are going nuts. I mean, I will tell you that. Okay, so. All right. Going on the agenda.
By the way, one thing we could do is vote for this for the June meeting and then think about it over the summer. How good was it?
If we vote on it at the May meeting, we don't have to enact it in June because we're not ready.
Oh, okay. Okay. You're taking the opposite. Okay. That's
fine. No, I'm taking what Marty was saying, you know, but, you know, vote in a way, it clarifies things for us to continue to do stuff. If the hybrid does not pass, then we know what our path is. You know what I mean? I think we're better off having a yes or a no in May.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just then we know the path we're on.
Yeah. But the fear is, will the technology work, and are we stuck with it forever? And if we say, let's try it for June, it gives us the chance to see how good or bad it was.
I think we will try it for June. We're gonna meet at the Y for our June 29th meeting for the full board.
Yes.
We're gonna meet at the Y.
Oh.
And that will be our experiment to see how that works.
I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? That we know. The committee meetings, most of them are going to be in our office, and we're getting that wired. Problem will be the larger committees. We're going to beg Manhattan College, who has thus far said no. We're going to try to go to those institutions and just see what we could do. Kira's is up for it. She's had tremendous leadership and optimism. And she's put in hours of work, and I think we all owe her, you know, commendation, because we wouldn't be having this conversation. Other boards are not having the conversation. They're saying, no, too many challenges. I'm not doing it. That's overwhelming, right? At the last conversation with Tom Lucania, he said, you are the only board that is considering it. And I said, do me a favor. I sent him my resolution. And I said, take a look at it, but he's been too inundated, you know, to get back to me. He said, I'm sure it's fine. You know, I don't know, but we're the only ones, I think, so far. Other people are trying, you know, some other little things.
Is that we definitely need optimism.
Well, Kira's optimistic, and I'm putting my faith in.
Excellent.
In that.
Yeah, okay. Laura, thank you. I just want to say I was, you know, I don't think I have a choice but to be optimistic. Because, you know, we are committed to the community and the community board. But I just want to point, you know, this is not going to be easy. Like Ed said, his union has tech people. That's their job. We don't have that. You know, we don't really have that anyway. So we lack a lot of guidance from the city on things like this. You know, we're not made of money. You know, we can't spend our whole budget on this technology. And, you know, I can't even imagine, you know, it can go really well, or some meetings can really just flunk. So it's something we're really working on top of everything else. So it has not been easy, but I thank you for your kind words, and we'll see how we make out.
Okay, so are there any other issues for discussion or follow-ups? Anybody? I see Rosemary, you have a hand.
Yeah, just a question. I probably should have asked it earlier. So is there any good news that you can share with us about the office? Is it moving along? Have they finally developed a plan so it can meet its deadline?
No, it is not moving along. In that, we haven't received a new design for me to share with you. The design has been submitted to DCAS. They're still looking at it. And the Committee on Open Government advised me to just talk about what the landlord already knows. And I don't have good news along this line. I think we'll be moving in 23 at some juncture. So that's why we felt we're going to be in the office enough months, and for all I know, till next summer. But I don't have an update. In fact, the building doesn't have an elevator yet. So, Thank you. Okay, hope for the best there too. David, your hand is up.
Yeah, just one thing. Everybody, you probably got the preliminary list of capital expense priorities that I sent out Monday. We didn't get a chance to meet on it to try to put it in prior order. They're just in the order of which I received them from the committees that I did receive them from. If you have any questions about how to use it, how to understand the details, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call.
Yeah, or if you see something is, amiss, or you think maybe something was misunderstood, let David know. Take a look at that list. And yes. I think there's still maybe a few committees outstanding, or you've gotten almost
just one.
Okay, all right. So,
could I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Are we going to have some kind of a regular budget meeting when you guys have the spare time to dwell on it when they're put in order, or the order that you want them in, or are we waiting all the way till September?
No, it'll be on the June agenda. Most years it's June, and then again in September. And then in the summer, we reach out to the chairs and, refine things. And as we ask the agencies about these new budget requests or the status, or there's, questions. So it's going to be what it's traditionally been, June and September. And we will endeavor to put it in some kind of order where each committee's first choice is at the top, and so on and so forth. It's always a very challenging, difficult task, but it will be on the agenda for June.
Okay, thank you.
If seeing no further hands, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And this was difficult, but necessary. So we'll see you. If I learn something, I'll shoot everybody an email, you know what I mean? After the Monday meeting, and keep you informed. Okay? So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Good night.